Hi guys, welcome to another LivinginSAtv video. Today, guess what? I am with the founder of OPH, Mr. Gerald Olitsky, guys. And today we're going to show the work that this man did, because he is literally the father of the Johannesburg Rejuvenation project that actually started here at Gandhi Square, guys. Can't you believe it? Stay tuned, because once again, this video will blow your mind. Hi guys, welcome to another video, and today guess what? We're gonna talk about OPH and the founding story of how all this happened in 1989. And nowadays we got a beautiful square called the Gandhi Square. We got in Marshalltown, connecting Colton Center all the way to the Magistrates Court. It's beautiful, it's walkable, it's amazing, and this is the story of the inception of how everything started, guys. And I must say, the stories like this are not being done or talked enough. And OPH has one thing about property development: everything they touch, they do it with taste, with class. It's definitely one of a kind, their properties. And again, the idea behind it is just remarkable. Look at these lobbies, these offices, these bathrooms. Guys, we're gonna go for a whole tour, and I promise this video you're gonna rewatch it and it's gonna blow your mind, and they're gonna rewrite a lot that you guys don't know yet about our beautiful inner city, guys, which is a staple that we need to take to all the other CBDs around the country. And a very quick detail, guys, check Gandhi Square. The best South African brands are right here, and that is remarkable.
It all started, I was an article clerk in the 1970s. So I did my articles on a square called Vanderbijl Square. And when the city was at its peak, Vanderbijl Square was probably the crime hotspot of Johannesburg. It was it was a place where all it was a bus holding facility. It was a haven for glue sniffers, hobos, pickpockets, the lower end of our society. And I had the luck, shall we say that, to have a very small office overlooking the square. And what struck me was that this is a city, Johannesburg is a city that it was a mining town. And there was no real town planning, and the roads came between the shacks, and that's how the thing developed. And we had very few open spaces. And I looked out from my little office, and that's the first time that the thought came to me of what was to become something a little bigger, was that we've got this open space and we don't use it. You know, here was a nice big open square, and it wasn't being used for any proper nice purpose. And my mind started ticking over, and then I thought to myself, you know, it would really make a nice square, etc., etc. Anyway, in 1978, after I graduated, I started a law practice, and lo and behold, I put the law practice. I took my law practice, and I took offices in the same building I did my articles, again overlooking the square. And then I said to myself, how can we make this better? I mean, here was a place where if the woman left the building to cross the square with any jewelry, with earrings or with a necklace or something like this, by the time they got to the other side, they didn't own it anymore because it was taken from them. So what do we do? So the first thing that struck me was we need to have greater security. Okay, then the thought also struck me, you know, why does the place look so bleak? Shouldn't we do something? It's a nice square. And this thought sat in my mind for a number of years, and then we started experiencing this new phenomenon. This, in its day, was the heart of the business sector, the mining sector, the banking sector of South Africa. But we had this strange situation that this was essentially in the apartheid years a city basically for white people, and black people weren't particularly comfortable coming into the city. when we started normalizing, and I particularly use that word normalizing, when we started becoming more normal, and black people started coming into the city more and more, white people said, there goes the city, you know, in stupidity. They said, there goes the city, and they fled to Rosebank and to Sandton, and they said, you see, these people are coming in and they're going to destroy the city. Now that was absurd, okay, but what really happened was by all leaving, they left a vacuum behind. What does a vacuum pull in? It pulls in the homeless, it pulls in the criminal element. And so they sat on the ivory towers in Sandton and said, we told you so, but in fact they caused the problem by fleeing. I mean, we had these absurd situations where, for example, you had a situation where, you know, a man, and I know of a particular case where a man one night locked up his building and never returned. Presumably he had huge arrears on his rates and taxes, etc., but he abandoned his building. This was what was happening. And everybody said, there, the city's gone. Now, you know, it was so absurd that I said there's got to be an opportunity here. So I started formulating a plan to try and see what we could do with the situation. And the institutions were throwing their buildings away. They were prepared to give it away virtually for next to nothing. And I said, there's got to be this opportunity. So I started thinking, well, if we take a zone, okay, we make the zone safe, we make it clean. If the buildings are available for nothing, we create an environment where people want to come back into that area. There's got to be a future to that. Then I came across and teamed up with a very fine gentleman by the name of Neil Fraser, and he had, the name may be familiar to those who've been in the city for a long time. And Neil Fraser had a concept which completely aligned with my vision. He had a concept of what we call today improvement districts. Now, improvement districts today you'll find in Durban, Umhlanga, Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, everywhere you wish to go, you will find improvement districts. But the very first was here. Saw the idea from Manhattan in New York, and we took the idea and we introduced it into South Africa. And the very first improvement district was around what we today call Gandhi Square. Okay, in those days it was called Vanderbilt Square. Anyway, so I then proceeded to start my law practice in 1978, and I built up a balance sheet. And in 1989, which I say is the official start of Litsky Property Holdings, in 1989 I bought my first building. And I did it on the basis of that I could buy an entire 7-story building, ground plus 6 uppers, for 1 million rand. Okay, and that wasn't even the keenest deal I did. I'll tell you, perhaps in a moment we'll mention some of the other incredible deals that were done that I did at that time. But anyway, so I persuaded the bank that instead of paying rent to a landlord, all I needed to do was take this building, pay off a mortgage bond, and it would come to the same money. Okay, great. So I took over the building. I used two floors of the building for my law practice, but there were another 4 floors, and there was a ground floor bonus. I then proceeded on a very economical basis to as tastefully as I could refurbish the rest of the floor, put proper retail onto the ground floor. All of a sudden, on a yield basis, that property became several times the value of the 1 million I paid in the beginning. This gave me the leverage. I forget what it was. It could be worth 4 or 5 million at the time. I don't know. And it gave me the leverage that when the building right next door was being sold by Stanik, which was at that stage part of the Standard Bank Group, they were looking to sell the building, and I also bought that maybe for $1.5 million. I forget exactly the amount. Then the building next to that, and we can perhaps go see it just now when we go for a walk, the building next to that became available, and I bought that as well. Then the building alongside that, a much bigger building, was being sold by a company called Commercial Union. It was an insurance company that owned several buildings in the area. I bought that. That was now a larger building. Again, we'll go see that just now. And so, one by one, I was able to assemble buildings on what was Vanderbijl Square. I then approached the city council post 94, and I had a bit of credibility because I had been a bit involved with various people who were now newly in power, and I approached them, and I had this radical idea. I said to them, listen, you've got this big open square, okay? Now you guys have been charged to revive the city. I said, but you've come out of a struggle. This is not your expertise. You know what? And I showed them pretty pictures, and I can show you in a moment. I'll show you those pretty pictures of the concept of what I had in mind. And I said to them, guys, I can give you this for next to nothing. The red lights of alert went up. They said, what is this? What is this next to nothing? What do you mean next to nothing? I said, two simple things. I said, number one, we have to declare the square a no trading area. I said, no, that's doable. That's doable. I explained, because I'll perhaps mention a little later that I have great respect for informal traders, but there's a place for everything. And in this instance, to revive the square, I had to have it clear of informal traders. Then I also said, there's another small thing I want. I said, I want a private lease over the square. You can imagine the shock and horror when I said I want a private lease over a bus terminus, for goodness sake. So they couldn't get their heads around it, and it took me several years for them to get it into their heads that the benefit was theirs. In fact, I was accepting or taking on a lot of obligations. I said, you know what? I'm gonna renovate it at my cost, not your cost. I didn't want their money. Okay, I said I'll raise the money from the private sector. I'll raise the money to do that. We will put security in place at no cost to you, and there's absolutely no harm to you. And this will not be restricted. It'll be as open as it ever was. The buses will continue to come through, albeit not as a holding facility anymore, but more as bus stops. But it took them years to understand it, but eventually the message got through, and they gave me, when I say me, I formed a consortium of the property owners in the area, and they gave us a private lease. It was a 45-year lease. Anyway, so that was the beginning of it. We then proceeded to renovate Vanderbijl Square, and we changed the name. I actually wanted it to be Mandela Square, and there was some precious people who wanted it to be called Gandhi Square, and because I had respect for both of these icons, I was happy to call it Gandhi Square. And perhaps it's regrettable because today Mandela Square sits in Sandton, okay? But it became Gandhi Square, and it was a singular success. On the back of that, I then approached the city council, and each step got easier than the last. I came along and I said, listen, there's this little street, and we will go film it now, okay? But there's this little street called Fox Street. It's useless because it's a horrible, cold, miserable street, okay? And it goes nowhere. It goes into Carlton Centre, so it's not a through road. Give me a private lease over that, and then I achieved what I set out to do. I got a 45-year lease over that. And what I'm formulating out for you is the beginnings of a master plan that I had in my mind, okay? That came in, and we will go walk on that as well, and we can enjoy what we see there. Then I said, on the back of that success, I started walking down Main Street. I knocked on doors. I saw the mining houses, Chamber of Mines, all the property owners down Main Street, and I was greeted with a lot of skepticism. I said, listen, we've done Fox Street, we've done Gandhi Square. Let's pedestrianize Main Street. It took I don't know, a year or more of persuading them. Eventually, the spark took hold with them, and to the extent that they liked the idea so much that they got involved and pretty much almost implemented that Main Street development with a mining theme. They almost took it out of my hands. I had already arranged a lease by that stage with the city council. They took it out of my hands, and they spent more money than I would have possibly put into it to create Main Street. But the whole idea of this was to take the whole Marshalltown area and create a walkable spine from all the way from the Carlton Centre on the east down to the Magistrates Court on the west, which bisects the entire city. Okay, this is the concept drawing that I presented. I had an architect draw this up, and this was the concept drawing which I peddled the idea of it. You'll see it still says on the top there, Thunderbell Square. That's how old this thing was, okay? And if you look at it today, it's not that different to what the concept was, okay? Then concept that I sold Fox Street on. Okay. Now, here's a photograph of what it became, and we can see it physically in a moment. And if we want to see what Thunderbell Square looks like today, the now Gandhi Square, it's this. And of course, you'll take real life photographs of this, and you'll see the reality of it. This was just an aerial view of. This aerial view of. We can do it this way around. This is an aerial view of it. This was what you've seen now is the proposal. You can see there's Gandhi Square. That's the Carlton Centre. I had some concept for that which didn't come into being, but that links it. Okay, and if we look at the macro picture, now you see the purple area. There's the Magistrates Court. There's Carlton Centre. There's Gandhi Square. This is a very big chunk of the city. And if we look carefully, what this has done, once upon a time, Standard Bank used to be an island, and Absa Precinct used to be an island, and FNB used to be an island in the middle of nowhere. This, of course, has pulled it all together. The building that we're currently in was once upon a time derelict. It had been stripped of everything. The lifts didn't work. There was absolutely apparently no future for the building. Where we're now standing, and if we look around us, this was the caretaker's, once upon a time, the caretaker's cottage or flat, and what always amazed me was that the staff and the caretakers always got the best space with the roof garden next to it, with the open rooftop. Well, what we've done is we've taken this and we've turned it into A-grade offices. If you look around, I don't think anybody would necessarily be embarrassed to be in this office. This is a single office with a view outside, as you've seen before, of a very nice patio with incredible views over Gandhi Square. And then let's take you through onto this side here and take a little walk. As you can see, I mean, this used to be obviously a rundown bathroom and a rundown kitchen. It's obviously now all renovated. And perhaps you may be interested that these are awards that the city has given for in fact, this one needs to be turned around. This one actually belongs like this. There we go, okay. This was open. This was still part of the roof. You can see the trusses across there. This was just an overhang. This was all open, so this is all new build. Okay. So if we look at this, everything from here was open. Everything here existed. So we were then able to create offices. You can see, rather messy, but very nice. Okay. Okay. You can perhaps see that we create doors here, so that if it's a nice sunny day, you can open it and you're almost sitting on the balcony, you know. Yeah. Take you to the next office. This is also built onto a rooftop. Now, one of the things that I've always said, if you want a building to work, it's the 3 L's. Now, traditionally in property, it's location, location, location. Not in our case. In our case, we talk about the lifts, which are very important, the lobbies, and we'll show you a number of lobbies that are nice. And funnily enough, very important are the loos. I invite you to go see the loos. I really mean this, because you know, it's what makes or breaks the happiness of people in a building. So if you want to go see the loos, by all means. Straight through, yeah. And now perhaps I can show you, for me, which is the most interesting part of the entire suite. Okay, now what I'm going to show you now used to be the air conditioning room. Okay, it was the room where there were 3 big tanks. It was originally, when in its heyday, the building was serviced by water-cooled air conditioning plants. Let's take you through. You can see we've tried to make a nice entrance to it. Okay, we've removed now of course, the things. We've opened up on both sides the windows. You know, you'll see the detail along the side there and all the rest of it, you know. And now, if you look over there, if you look above there, that used to feed water into the tanks. I really believe that we had to keep that, just for historical purposes. I think it's quite an interesting little artifact. I mentioned the LLLs, the lifts, loos and lobbies. This is one of the lobbies that we talk about. When I got here, the thing had been wrecked. And the most amazing thing was, I found these pieces of copper just lying around. Everything else had been stripped, and amazingly the copper hadn't been taken. I discovered from the University of Pretoria that this was actually artwork done by a famous South African artist. We restored it. You can see where it is. It's here now. It's over there. It's over there. You know, you can see all over the show. and that is a minor miracle that in fact it still exists. As you walk out of the building, you can see the befores and afters. In other words, you've now witnessed that building refurbished, and you can look right next door, a building which we don't own, what did all these things look like before. Total mess. What we're now going to see are buildings that were often derelict, which were from a very nice Art Deco era, which we've actually restored. If we look across the road, that's one of them. You can see it's nicely occupied, it's very attractive. Even more so, the next couple of buildings I'm going to show you. Right, now we're looking at two buildings over here. The building on the left there, the 113, it had been completely destroyed. All that was left was the facade. In a moment I'm going to take you for a walk through. We've created an arcade through between two buildings. The next building was we can give you some stills actually of what it looked like. It was squatter occupied. These were all squatter occupied actually, but that was occupied by the gangs, and it was actually gang headquarters. And it's another story about how we managed to clear the buildings with compassion, but that's another story. But we took a building which was ready for demolition. It's a historical building, it's a heritage building, and as you can see, we've done some really serious stuff with it. All the best, eh? Okay. By the way, that happens all the time. It's worth mentioning, okay, that when we cleared this building, okay, the normal way of clearing buildings would be to go to court, get a court order, and then the Red Ants would arrive at 3 or 4 in the morning and inhumanely take people's stuff, throw it out the window. You know, just the few possessions that these people had, they would then lose. And I wasn't prepared to go on that route. So I devised a different strategy. We approached the residents of the building, and I discovered that there's a committee that runs all of these squatter occupied buildings. And there's a committee member per floor. We identified the committee. What then happened was the following, is that we sat down, me and my guys sat down, we went into this place and we sat down and discussed with the residents. We said to them, listen guys, it's going to cost us $500,000 or R1 million, lawyers' fees, to have you evicted. And then of course you're going to be evicted, you're going to be treated like dogs. Let's make a deal. How many are you here? Let's take the $500,000 or R1 million and divide it amongst you guys, and you leave. Now what I'm telling you, to get credibility took a couple of years before they were persuaded that this was the way to go. However, it eventually took root, and this was the first building of that. We've done that several times again, and each time it got easier, and I'll tell you why, is because we never solved the homeless problem. They would then go and presumably occupy another building, and it was almost like they knew where I was going next because so I would arrive there and they'd say, oh hello, us again. We had a lot of repeat customers, you know, and I would say, and I would say, how much this time? And we repeated this process, and in the process we were able to recover and revamp and resuscitate so many of these beautiful old buildings which you are now looking at. And all the buildings you're looking at were subject to, the buildings that we're immediately looking at were subject to that process. And I'm going to show you, as we step across the street, I'm going to show you another building that you can see better from the other side of the street that had a bit of an unhappy history to it. Okay. Now if we look at this building over here, okay, together with that building over there, they were both squatter occupied. Now the unfortunate thing of this building on the left here, there's the lower one, is that there was a terrible fire, and unfortunately there were some fatalities in that fire. A couple of people died in the fire, okay? Anyway, so this was a wreck, and all that was left was this outside facade. We restored the facade, and we built behind it, as you see today, a 2,000 square meter gym. So that thing it's been there for many years now, a very successful gym of approximately 2,000 square meters. And even more so, what we did was we then broke through between the two buildings because the space that we'd built there for the gym wasn't sufficient. If you look carefully, you'll see the gym extends into the next building as well. So it's a huge gym. Then one of the concepts that I remember from old Johannesburg, there used to be arcades. The arcades became defunct, they were closed down, and it's a pity because arcades link streets. So I took these two buildings that were derelict at the time, I was quite occupied at the time, and I broke down the barrier between the two, and I created a walkway, an arcade. Let us go through the arcade, and you'll get the sense of what it's become. Let's take a walk through.
Wow.
And then what we did was we then broke through into one of our buildings so that we could link Main Street to Fox Street. You'll see that this is now a busy little arcade. Sorry. And now we're walking into the next building.
Wow.
Okay.
Sure, this is next level.
And you will actually see that there was an African artist who I was able to commission to do all these beautiful mosaics. You'll see in our portfolio there's quite a lot of that. But I mean, look what we have here: an art gallery and a men's health clinic. Okay. You know, many people, perhaps yourself included, may not even know this exists.
And I know this, you didn't know this. How are you?
All right, and you? Yeah.
I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah. How are you? I haven't seen you in ages.
For a long time.
Nice to see you. Yeah. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm very good.
You're keeping well?
Oh, very well.
Excellent.
It's a nice place, huh?
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so now these were two separate buildings. Now to create a nice open lobby, I broke through between the two buildings. Okay. Before there were two pokey little lobbies. Again, the L of lobby. And by opening up the two, you've got a nice welcoming lobby. You can see that was the door over there, which has now been closed. Well, the big advantage is you've got two sets of lifts. Now we come on to Fox Street. You know, I earlier referred to Fox Street as a street that nobody around wanted to walk in because it was a cold, unhappy, unfriendly, messy street. And this is the street that I persuaded the council to give me that private lease over. You can now see that it's a main arterial for pedestrians. So if you look here, we're not in peak time. It's you know, lunchtime is over, and yet you can see people continue to use it. Once upon a time, the main entrance to the Carlton Centre used to be in Commissioner Street. Once I established this Fox Street thing, this what used to be a minor entrance has now become the major entrance because this is how the pedestrian flow goes. And this is part of the spine that I've described to you. It begins at the Carlton Centre, goes through Gandhi Square, down Main Street, and completely bisects the city, ends up at the Magistrates Court down at the bottom. And you can walk safely from one end to the other and feel like you're anywhere in the world. To look at the retail. In days gone by, literally the retail was the bottom grade of retail. If you look around you now, you've got the most serious retail. You've got Nedbank, Absa, Capitec, all the national names. Okay. Once upon a time, you couldn't let this retail. Here and on Gandhi Square, which we'll see in a moment. once this became so popular with so much pedestrian traffic, there was such a demand for retail space that I then took the first floor of the buildings that used to be offices and took staircases up, and I was able to take the staircases up because now I held a private lease on this, so I was able to do that, and we created secondary retail on the first floor, as you may see now, which is most unusual. Traditionally, upper floor retail doesn't work. Given the mass volume of people, it works very well. As we walk, you'll see I get greeted by a number of people en route. Many of them were actually squatters in the buildings. The approach we took to humanely relocate the squatters resulted in a situation where if I'd had them thrown out of the building, I would have feared for my life perhaps. This way, there's an understanding, there's a friendship, and the people that were previously squatters in the buildings, you may witness yourself, come over and say hello. Behind me is an interesting model. What we did over here, it's the old Trust Bank building. We did a joint venture with a black entrepreneur who got government leases. He took the upper floors, and then we own the retail and parking underground. Okay, and what's really important about is that the quality of the retail also determines the success of the upper floors, because the retail is the public face of that building. So we were able to put in high quality retail on the ground floor, which complemented what he did on the upper floor, and as a joint venture it was most successful. I think one of the major successes of this all was that this once no-go area, Fundamental Square as it was, which is now Gandhi Square, was an area that nobody wanted to go and be on. And what's really happened is that if you look, here's a KFC, it's not lunchtime and the place is packed. Not my statistics, about 7-8 years ago, and it's grown since. The Joburg Development Agency did a survey of the number of people that walk through the square every day, and it was the most remarkable number of over 250,000 people a day. Okay, now that figure's probably increased over time, but it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal that you have those numbers. A lot of them are but 50 to 60,000 are bus commuters, but the rest are just people who use the city. Behind me, that building over there is the building where we started. It's our head office. That building there, below the OPH with the yellow and the orange, was the building I mentioned earlier where I did my articles and I started my first law practice. I actually have a love affair with that building because it was the building in which, as I say, I did my articles, I started my law practice, and it was the first building I ever bought. So I have a great relationship with that building. What's interesting is this building over here, which was derelict, and it's one of the oldest buildings in Johannesburg, which we have sensitively restored as a heritage building. All right, so this building was derelict. We've kept its character, we've restored the wood, we've restored its old touch and feel. It's very much a heritage building, but it's very nice and occupiable now. You can have a look if you wish.
Let's go upstairs, yeah. Just like I say, you can see the OPH style on it. Jesus Christ.
You see, what we've managed to do is we've kept the old pressed ceilings and we haven't disturbed it at all, but added a modern touch to it. So you can see that it's got its heritage, but it's very good for modern use. You can see all the way down there.
And we don't have to say that everything is basically occupied.
It's occupied. It's occupied. This building is 100% occupied.
Sure. Fantastic. This is really. Look at all the fires. How are you guys? Look at that. Fantastic. Mansion. Look at the detail. There is no other property developer doing what you're doing in CBD, just to make it clear, with this level of craftsmanship.
I'm so glad you appreciate it.
Sure. This is so amazing. Have a good one. And look at this. With you guys can see there with the underground parking just here in Gandhi Square.
This large square below us, we've got a private lease over the surface. Below us is a huge parking lot, which at the moment is not being fully utilized, but it's definitely there to be used favorably. What we have over here is a statue of Gandhi. Why it's significant and why the square is called Gandhi Square is this is where Gandhi, when he was in South Africa, practiced law. So you'll see a young Gandhi, a statue which was endowed by the Indian government, a young Gandhi in his court robes. And on a more modern theme, we recently erected as a tourist attraction the sign which has become very, very popular for people on Twitter, X, whatever it is, etc., where they take selfies in front of that, which also is helping us popularize the city. We wanted to make a zebra crossing a real zebra crossing.
Look at this. This is the creativity, guys.
What we can see here is, look at it, all the banks and the retails, the national retails on the ground floor. Look at the first floor, fully occupied. Unusually, again, I repeat, for a successful off-street retail. But look at it, it's because of the huge number of people that now pass through the square. Let's just take you inside, probably the most successful McDonald's in the country, here in the Johannesburg CBD. The CBD that everybody says is dying. Okay. Okay. Let's just take you inside here. There we go. Look at this. Hey? Yeah. And this extends all the way from Gandhi Square through to Marshall Street.
Can we go there?
Yes, of course.
So people have and they actually understand how big this is.
Sure. And we've got to be mindful of the fact that it's not lunchtime. And look how this place is still buzzing.
Busy and buzzing.
Yeah.
So this is like a flagship store almost.
This is a flagship store. Oh, yes.
Hello.
It's not as glamorous as the others, but you get a sense that even the small buildings can be given a decent feeling.
Looks incredible, actually. As good as the other ones.
All right, now this is what we now call the Gandhi Mall. I just actually shot a hole right through buildings to link Gandhi Square to Marshall Street. What is the result of that? The result of that is that actually it's like a blood transplant. It takes the good blood from Gandhi Square and feeds it through, to the extent that you may see some corrugated iron at the other end. That's a building that's being built at a cost of about R500 million by National Public Works for the new deeds office. One wonders if it would have been built if it didn't have this access to Gandhi Square.
Okay, let's walk to the other side, I guess. Let's see what's going on. Sure.
You'll see here again my artist. Do these mosaics for you. You mentioned that in the past.
Yeah, we got the best artists in the world.
They will feel that we're actually going into another building now. That's hence the rays that will drop.
More people moving in. So many.
Exactly. Moving in.
This is really scary what you did in the last 35 years.
Okay. I mean, what you see here is the building that is now being constructed for national public works. This particular building has got a special place. I had already owned all the buildings down the block, but this one I didn't own, and it had been hijacked as a residential building. The city council, because of health reasons, they cleared the building, and they came to me and they said that I should please try and buy the building because they're scared that more of the same would come if they let go of it. I then bought the building for the grand sum of 1 million rand. Okay, and I'll never forget the experience. The first time I walked through that building, it was dark. I just felt I was sloshing my way through the building. What I didn't realize was that all the toilets had overflowed, and I was walking through an inch or two of poo. To the extent that when I left the building, I took off my shoes and socks and I threw them in the dustbin, and I went home barefoot. And perhaps I can show you what that building looks like today. Okay, we're about to walk into the building I just described. That was once the most horrendous squatter occupied building, unsafe, unhealthy. Today it's a beautiful A-grade building. Perhaps we can walk inside and I can show it to you. Hi. Hello, Steve. Hi. How you doing?
Okay guys, I just want to say thank you very much, Gerald, for coming to the show, because again, he did something amazing, because if it wasn't for him, what you guys seeing in terms of the CBD will not exist, guys. So Gerald, thank you very much. Would you like to say something before we go?
Yes, I would, David. I want to thank you very much for coming and showcasing that the Johannesburg CBD is not dead, that there's a lot to like about it, that there are parts that are living, thriving. There is a fine future of the city. We must not consider it dead just yet.
Yeah, and I must say, the work that he developed here, it's amazing. Guys, the brands, we got the biggest South African brands right here in Gandhi Square, and what is happening here on other blocks of the city itself is just remarkable. Again, you guys need to see it for yourself. Make sure you share, subscribe, and destroy that like button, and we will see you in the next LivinginSAtv video.